birthday party? And then you got a freaking miracle. There you go.
Welcome to the Abracadamn podcast. I'm your host, stand-up comedy magician Danny Whitson. All right, Abracadammits. I hope you guys have had a good week, been out there grinding, getting things done. I've had a good week. I have. It's been a good one. I do want to say this. I have realized that your boy can actually do real magic. Yes, I can do real magic. Not a trick, not illusion. This is real. I'll tell you what it is I do. I can see somebody across the room, someone who I've never, ever met before, and I can tell you if that person stinks to high hell with 100% accuracy just by looking across the room. That's a magical gift I have. I realize that during these hot summer months. I do want to give a big shout out to some of our people who've commented, left some reviews. Thank you, Nick Roberts, for the Nick Lewin episode. Big shout out to you, Tricky Nicky. Also want to give a big shout out to Griffin Mod. You know who you are, for the review. Thank you. Also want to talk about some show dates. Reminder, July 23rd, I'm going to be at the 1907 Brewery in Morristown, Tennessee. You can get the tickets on Eventbrite right now. Come see the show. Also, then the next day, July 24th, I'm going to be at the Comedy Zone in Bristol, Virginia. And I believe you can go to the website, Comedy Zone, Bristol, Virginia, and pick up those tickets for that show. So both of those shows you definitely want to get out and check out. It's going to be a blast. I'm looking forward to Morristown and Bristol. Can't wait to see you good people. Speaking of good people, I want to give a shout out to some of our international listeners. I just want to say people in the UK, Turkey, and Australia, thank you for listening to the Abracadamn podcast. I see you. I'd also like to add that the Abracadamn podcast is now on YouTube. So now you can go on YouTube, just search Danny Whitson, Magic and Comedy, Abracadamn, and you can watch 30 minutes of these episodes. These interviews are also full of some funny memes and some comical editing that your boy has put in himself. So definitely go check us out on YouTube, and be sure to subscribe and like and hit the little bell button. That way you'll know when an episode comes out. But now let's take time to give a shout out for the sponsors of the Abracadamn podcast. Okay. Well, today's episode is brought to you by Rosie Tattoos. Custom tattoos designed to suit your style in a friendly and clean environment. I've been getting my tattoos done by Rosie for a while now, and I couldn't recommend anyone else because she does excellent work. As a matter of fact, I got an appointment to see Rosie here in just a few weeks, and I cannot wait to get my ink therapy done, baby. Rosie gets free consultations by Facebook Messenger, Instagram, or by email. Shoot her an email at rosietattoos@yahoo.com. Give Rosie a call today at 865-281-3451, or go see Rosie at 5710 Kingston Pike, Knoxville, Tennessee. Get your ink therapy done. You know you want a tattoo. Go see Rosie Tattoos. This episode is also brought to you by Will's Towing, located at 2081 Oak Ridge Turnpike, Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Now, guys, no one likes to be broke down on the side of the road. It's awful. It sucks. But don't panic. If this does ever happen, give Will Roberts a call at 865-272-5300 and let Will Roberts take care of your towing needs. Will come pick it up, and he will park that car anywhere you need him to park it. If you want that car set in your living room, Will put it in your living room. Also, we've all seen those tow truck drivers that show up and they look kind of sketch. You know, like they may have been touching a possum before they came up to you. You know what I mean? One of those guys. You never have to worry about that at Will's Towing. Everybody who works at Will's Towing is clean, safe, and very friendly to deal with. So if your car breaks down, you need a towing service at all, give Will Roberts a call at Will's Towing. That's 865-272-5300. All right, Abracadammits. Now, today's guest is a very, very talented person. First of all, he's an extremely funny stand-up comedian, which definitely one of my favorite dry bar specials. He is super, super funny. But also, he's a very talented artist. And I'm not joking when I say that his pictures that his drawings, they look so realistic you would have sworn that it was a photograph. That's how good this guy is. The details that he puts into his drawings, which, by the way, you can actually see these drawings on the YouTube channel Interview. But just as good as his drawings, he's very funny as well. So if you will, Abracadamn, sit back and relax and enjoy my fun conversation with talented artist and stand-up comedian Andy Forrester. All right, we got Andy Forrester here today on the Abracadamn podcast. How you doing, Andy?
I'm good. How about you?
Doing good. I tell you what, man, if you don't mind, do you care to go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners?
Sure. My name is Andy Forrester. I'm a local plumber. I'm just teasing. My name is Andy Forrester, and I am a comedian. I've been performing comedy since 1999 in some way, shape, or form. And I'm also an artist. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Graphic Design, and I'm pretty good at that. And I also know how to draw, usually with colored pencil. And so I'm an artist and a comedian, and I do all of the above. And I've, in terms of if you've ever heard or seen me before, I recently had a dry bar comedy special come out in 2019. They re-released it again last year under a different title. And so, yeah, I'm not super famous, but I'm ever so slightly. You can see me online.
Okay, well, there's a lot of interesting in that right there, right off the bat. First of all, I do want to say this, and we'll definitely come back and talk about it. My favorite dry bar special that I've seen, and it's so good. No wonder they had to do it, re-release it, because it is.
Oh, well, I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's that is a fun experience, to be honest. I had seen them and was curious how you went about it. Somebody asked me, "Hey, have you ever tried to do it?" I'm like, "I don't know how you go about it." And he lived in Utah, and he was like, "Oh, I know the guy that owns it. Here's his information." I emailed the guy, never really heard back from him, and then I did a show for one booker. He had never even seen me before, and I just did one show. And a couple of months later, he was like, "Hey, do you want to do a dry bar?" I was like, "Yeah," and he hooked it up, and I got it. It was awesome. And you record 2 shows in one night with 2 other people. So, it's kind of like having 3 headliners, and each one of them does 25, 30 minutes, something like that. And then they do it again for a second show, and they'll intercut it. But I think mine was all the second show or whatever. And I loved it. It was really, really good. And, I've had other comics contact me like, is it worth it? And I'm like, what would it hurt? Like, how is it going to hurt you in any way, shape, or form? I mean, it's not the Tonight Show, but it's also, like way more exposure than you're currently getting. So why not? And I love it.
Platforms are so there's different platforms these days.
Yeah.
What was available back then when it was just the Tonight Show.
Yeah, and here's the crazy thing about the dry bar. When I signed on to do it, and when they released it initially, all they had was the name of the company that tapes it is called Vid Angel. So initially, that's all that was there was a Vid Angel app, and you perform that in front of Mormons. They're not all Mormons, but you're performing it in Utah. And so they send you all these, like, here's how you can be dry bar clean and all that stuff. So you gotta work clean. I already work clean, but they're like, you can't say, "Oh my God," because to them that's like saying GD, and I didn't know that. So you learn new stuff. And so that was the only way it was out there. And then Dry Bar came out with its own app, and then they started putting like whole specials on Facebook and YouTube. And now that's their primary thing, is like views on Facebook and YouTube. And the funny part is on VidAngel, and I think on the Dry Bar app, people, especially Mormons, can go on there and filter out what they don't want to hear. it's all clean comedy, and yet they're like, well, it'll be like, I asked them ahead of time, can I say crap and poop? And they were like, well, it'll be filtered. So if you go look on there, there's a thing and even the cleanest comics on there, they all have filters on there. Then one of mine was like, a comedian insinuates he's not wearing pants and swishes his hips back and forth. I'm like, all right. So, I mean, I love it. It's just, that made me laugh. I'm like, I didn't realize that we're that, that's how the Mormons were, but so be it. Good for them. I'm not knocking it in any way, shape, or form.
Well, I mean, I've known some Mormon people growing up, and some of them, I mean, the hardcore ones, I mean, I guess it's like anything, kind of like with Catholics, hardcore Catholics and, hardcore, like no caffeine and, a lot of those kind of things,
Right.
So,
it's like just like the Satanists, they're all the same.
Same thing.
Just teasing. I'm just teasing.
But yeah, maybe that's why they call it dry bar too, like super dry.
Well, and it is, and it is dry, and it is a dry bar. I mean, you go in there, they serve soda and popcorn and snacks, and that's it. They're like, it's no, and oddly enough, I am not a drinker. It's not my thing. It has nothing to do with like I'm a former alcoholic or anything. I hate the way it tastes. So to me, it's a good thing, because one of the things that messes up comedy shows on a regular basis are drunk people, and you're not going to have drunk people at a dry bar comedy show because it's a dry bar. Like, they're not, unless they show up hammered, and I'm sure if they do, that they might be escorted out, but it's rare, so I doubt it ever happens. So yeah, it's a good thing. I enjoyed it.
I wonder, would it be like probably like a mixture between corporate and a church show? Maybe.
Yeah, it probably so. It's funny. I'm doing a show next weekend in Forre, Alabama, and you get booked for stuff. You assume it's just a show, no big deal. It's like 3 nights, and then I saw a link for it, and I clicked on it, and it's like the Christian Comedy Fest. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I asked the booker, I'm like, is this a Christian comedy show? And he was like, no. I said, well, that is what this link says. And he says, I said, look, I'm clean. I work clean. I don't talk about sex. I'm not a big cursor. I said, but I'm not churchy. I'm singing Rob Zombie at some point in the middle of my set, so I am not churchy. So
that's funny. It's those kind of, now some of those gigs though that I did a corporate event one time for, it was a Southern. It was arranged and set up by the Southern Baptist Association.
Oh yeah.
But it was like a marriage retreat thing where they all came. But it turned out it was a blast. It was a fun show.
Yeah.
So, I mean, of course, you're always clean when you do those kind of shows, but you don't want to come in there, like sparkling.
But I've done shows over the years and with other people too, where I'm the feature and they're the headliner, and we walk in and I didn't always think about it, but the headliner a lot of times would say like, well, what do you mean by clean? Or what do you mean, what is your definition of clean? And, in my head, I try and work in a way where I don't have to worry about that. But I have learned over the years when jokes are inappropriate, and in my head, I didn't think they were, but it turns out they are, you know what I mean? I may even write a joke full of curse words, knowing I'm not going to say it that way. But when I'm writing it down, like that's just how it comes out of my head. But for the most part, I don't. And because it just keeps me from doing that, and it's not like, I mean, look, if you hang out with me off stage, I curse. So it's not, I'm not I'm not, I have to watch myself around my kids. That's how bad I am. But I am an Eagle Scout, so an actual Eagle Scout. So I don't, I'm not big on calling ladies names or anybody names for the most part. I don't like talking filthy. And I tell people all the time, I don't talk to my wife about sex. I'm not going to do it with a room full of strangers. So it's not my thing. And so you do have to sometimes find out what's their threshold, like I did an online show last year, and I was having fun with the participants' names and didn't realize that the show I was doing was like international. And I didn't feel like I was picking on them, but I guess it could easily be viewed that way, that I was picking on their names. And so, you do have to be careful about that sort of thing. And I worry about it because I don't like to offend people.
Absolutely. I do sometimes I try to get that comfortableness set up with my audience as much as possible. Because
Right.
in my show, I do a lot of interacting with the audience. And
Right.
if I bring somebody up on stage and I ask them their name and I can't pronounce it,
Yeah.
well, sometimes I'll say, well, I'm just going to call you Bill, or I'm just going to call you Tom, and sometimes the majority of the time people love that and they laugh.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's been a couple times where people's like, no.
Yeah.
So I just look like the dumb white guy standing on
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
But okay, well, let's do this because what you said 1999 is whenever you started doing stand-up comedy. Now, granted, that was an interesting year. Like people may not remember because that was the Y2K scare and everything was coming up in 19. So what did you think, Andy? Was it like this is the end of the world and I'm gonna become a comic? Or
no, I wasn't a stand-up yet. I started comedy as doing improv comedy, and I had moved to the Raleigh, Durham area, Chapel Hill area, and in '98, and I'd always wanted to try it. I was a DJ on the radio in college, and then right outside of college, I got a job at the classic rock station, and like I had a pretty popular show in college, and you start out like everybody else, where you're just like, hey, it's 6 a.m. Here's Weezer, whatever, and then by the time I was a senior, I had my own show. I'd bring in my own records. I would play everything from Winnie the Pooh to Run DMC and just crazy stuff, being silly. And I always wanted to do comedy, but I didn't really know how to go about it. And I was like, I'm going to do stand up. But I went to a comedy sports show in Chapel Hill. And at the end of the show, they're like, you think you can do this? I'm like, oh, I can do this. I can play games and make them ups and all that stuff. So I joined, and I did that for 5 or 6 years. And the day that I went to go do it, it was crazy. The day I went to go do sort of your premiere show, you've taken classes. Let's see if you can join the club. My boss died. I worked at the Yellow Pages, and I had known him for like a year, and I was a graphic designer, and it was not the best day. It's like, let's go be funny for the first time in front of an audience. And it worked out, and I did that up until I did it for a while, probably about 10 years, but I sort of petered out of it. And in 2005, I went and tried stand up for the first time. One of the guys at the improv club was like, hey, I've been, on a message board. He's like, I've been going and doing classes over at Good Nights if anybody wants to come see me. And I was like, yeah, that's great. How do you do that? And so I went over there and I just tried out one night, and it went well. And I started taking the classes because I knew you would get extra stage time. And so there, 2005, I started at Good Nights in like April of 2005. And it's funny, I didn't really bomb until I went to go practice emceeing one weekend. So it was like 5 months or something, and they were like, well, you're pretty good. Can you come this weekend and learn how to MC, and then I'll need you to MC the next weekend. I'm like, okay. And all I did was like a guest spot on a Sunday night, and then I just ate it. Like all the stuff I had done on Wednesday after Wednesday just was none of it worked. I was like, well, this is the weirdest thing ever. And that's how if you're like, you're like, if you bomb, you're like, well, that was horrible, and you still want to keep doing it. You're like, yeah, but this is still wonderful,
Yeah.
So, like you, and it's hard sometimes. Sometimes you bomb so hard, you're like, what am I doing? I thought I was pretty good at this, and but I didn't tell people when I started doing stand up. I wasn't like, y'all got to come out and see me like all the time. I just, Facebook wasn't even around yet, so I think what MySpace was when I first got started. So they were like, well, you got to have a MySpace page. And I'm like, whatever, dude. And I did, but whatever. And social media definitely makes a difference when it comes to comedy in terms of like telling people and whatever. But I didn't invite people right at first. But once I'd been doing it a while, I would, and they'd come out and see me. They're like, you're actually pretty funny. I'm like, do you think I would invite you to come see me if I was terrible at this? I wouldn't still do it if I was.
Well, we all know comics that do that though. So.
And that, yeah, but I'm a very low self-esteem, like not a, I'm a fat guy that is not remotely attractive. And so I just don't have this, opinion of myself, and I'm like, no, I'm great. Like even if I do like a really good show and it goes well, I still am not going to be like, yeah, I am awesome. I can't. I've never once looked in the mirror and gone, all right, like not one time.
Well, that's one thing about us, about entertainers, comics, all in general. We could go up there and have the greatest show ever, and we would still be kicking ourselves.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's and it's weird because when you see like a good looking comic, I got a couple of friends that are, and I'll be like, how are you at all like damaged? You know what I mean? Like, what like what is going to be your take? You're way too attractive, and that's a bad, and I don't mean it that way where it's like attractive people can't be funny. That is not what I mean. I just am always like, there's so many comedians that are, like we, we're chock full of anxiety and neurotic, and we have all these issues, and, we don't always just sit and tell you like, oh, here are the issues that I have and that sort of thing. I mean, I've had people ask me like, are you really being your true self? I'm like, well, listen, my true self is I hate people that don't return their shopping cart, and I think they deserve the death penalty. But I don't get up there and say that when I'm up there. I mean, like I was like, I'm a very nice guy and I like to be silly. So I don't get up there and, I do not question, but I wish that I could be as prolific as, say, Bill Hicks. He could get up and he could talk about a topic that is poignant and be hilarious. And I can't do that. I'd love to, but it's not me. That doesn't fit who I am. I am just a silly person that just wants to make you laugh. And I don't want to offend you. And I don't want to, make you, I don't want to divide the room, for a lack of a better term.
I've never been a fan of that. And, I try to stay away from topics that will divide the room.
Right.
My goal is let's all join this party together and just time.
Let's have fun. Like I can't. And the thing is there are people who are masters at it. Like there are people who can talk about politics or religion or whatever it may be, and they can do it in a way that's like it doesn't matter. You're not. Like I saw Dave Attell, and he is. I mean, he's a master. He really is. Dave Attell. And he's so fast, and he could say the most offensive thing. And at no point am I ever sitting there going, I bet he really believes that. I bet he really does hate babies or whatever it may be. You know what I mean? Like, I don't remember anything specific, but I just, whatever he's saying, it never offends me in a way. But then, there's other people where I'm like, no, you're racist. I can tell from your jokes you're racist. And that sort of, so, that's usually open micers. They haven't,
They haven't. Well, there's things I tell people this all the time. I say, I'm not one of these people. I don't think any topic is off the table for comedy, but that doesn't mean that you have the skill level to talk about that topic.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Because I know what my opinions are about, religion and politics and that sort of thing. But I try not to let them, like, if you pay attention to some things that I say, you might be like, hey, wait a minute. But I'm not overt about it. And I'm never, bringing up a particular politician on stage and railing on them, because you're just going to make half the people mad. And which is a shame, because, it used to just be you could make fun of politicians and everybody would laugh at it. But, it has changed in that regard, and people are little false idols there. So
so it's so weird now. Yeah. And to me, I tell people, I say this all the time, but if you're a rational thinking human being, it's tough times. And
yeah. Turns out if you're if you a little common sense is painful for yourself. If you're into common sense, it's not a good time.
It's not good times. And now also I'll say this, I don't rock the boat or any of those kind of things, but somebody had brought this up. I was talking with another comic about this, and you had talked about like you've got these really super attractive comedians, and you're just thinking, wow, not only are they funny, he's good looking too.
Right. And I yeah.
But I think there's also some things that those comics can't say or may have a more difficult time joking about or getting away with versus, me, myself, I'm redheaded and 5'5". I can.
Yeah. I'll believe me. I'm redheaded and 5'9" or 10 or somewhere around there. I'm with you. I mean, and the thing is, it is one of like, I like to think that I evolve on a regular basis, and I try to be I'm very inclusive. I try to be very understanding. And, I did have that opinion right at the beginning, like, what is this attractive person? Not what do they have to say, but like, it's that thought of like, how are they damaged? And it turns out, like in my head, I thought of something funny the other day, but it's true. It's like, who are these nut jobs that are walking around that don't have anxiety? Like it, you know what I mean? Like almost everybody has some sort of issue. There's nothing to say that a attractive person, man or woman, doesn't have their own issues, and that you don't even have to be somebody who has issues in order to be a comedian. So, and nobody ever says that that's the case, but you do discover that when you become friends with a bunch of comedians. Like, if, you sit and talk to me, I'll eventually tell you the story about how horrible my mother was. You know what I mean? But it's not something I include in my act, and it's not something that I go around telling people the moment I meet them. But there's always something, and usually once you become friends with some of them, if you hang out with them long enough, you'll just sit there and kind of get into it. So, again, not everybody has issues. Not the attractive people are just as funny as us ugly folks. I'm not including you in that. I'm just saying me.
Team ugly right here.
Yeah. So, but you're right. They can't, would a fat joke go well coming from Nikki Glaser? But she's really good. So it could be one of these things where she can say, there's people who get so good that they can just about say anything and it works no matter what. And, she's pretty funny. So it may go really well. And she could have told a whole album full of fat jokes and I just haven't heard them. So,
that's Nikki Glaser. You're right. She may be able to get away with that just because of her skill level. She is a fantastic comic.
Yeah.
I will tell you this real quick. Now, I never was for a while. I never really understood his cult following that he had until I watched one of his specials. And still, I mean, he's kind of dark. Absolutely, he's very dark. And I know you know what I'm talking about when I say Doug Stanhope.
Yeah.
Now I'll say this, okay? Doug Stanhope, though, is a master at his craft because he had me laughing at topics that I didn't think I could ever laugh.
You would find funny, right?
And
yeah.
It was, and if you get a chance, go YouTube his "This Isn't Happening" thing with Comedy Central.
Okay.
The story. He basically
yes.
Laugh. He basically gets you to laugh at a guy dying, and you laugh about it.
Yeah.
That's how, and he knows what he's doing.
That's a skill. It's a lot like that roasting. Like it's a skill that some people have, some people don't. The comedy club in Greensboro, the Idiot Box, they were kind of doing like roast battles just for fun, and I thought I would try it. Just to see, a couple of years ago, I just like, well, let's see, it's not something I feel like I'm good at or whatever. And then they pair you up. They paired me up with somebody I've never met before. and you got to sit there and learn about somebody. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I know other comedians in the area, like appreciate you pairing me up with somebody I've never met. And this person is somebody who loves doing this. They paired me. I mean, even the Jenny who owns the club was like, "Oh man, he can be really rough." I'm like, "It's fine." I mean, I honestly don't have skeletons in my closet that like go for it, And it was a matter of like the town I grew up in was a podunk little town. And like he starts bringing up, that known for KKK, known for having members of the KKK and parades and whatnot. yeah, I know. That's why I don't live there anymore. And you know what I mean? Like, but that's a skill that some people have. And at the end, of course I didn't win. And they said, well, you had great jokes, but the guy had written like hundreds. I'm like, hundreds? I don't have that kind of time or energy to devote to somebody I've never met before to write joke. Like, come on. And, he just had like a ton of them. And again, nothing against him. He was really good at it. So good for him. But that is not my forte. My forte is being silly. And I like that. I remember I had trouble with this one particular club, and a buddy of mine texted me one night. He goes, I figured out the secret of this club. I was like, what is it? He goes, you got to curse. I'm like, well, I'm not changing how I do comedy for a club. I was like, and you get better as you go. So I clearly hadn't figured out the best way to do it at that club or something. And, it's an interesting place to begin. I'm not going to, I'm not here to burn bridges and whatnot, but so I don't do that when I'm there, but I do sort of do what I do a little more aggressively when I'm there, if that makes any sense.
No. And there's things that it's almost hard to even explain, little techniques like, for one, like dealing with hecklers, there's no perfect antidote.
And there's no one way.
There's no one way. And I brag about this. I'm bragging about this for a second.
Go for it.
I had a heckler in a show, and he was one of the types that, they think they're helping. They think they're part of the show. And instead of shutting him down completely, which, by the way, I'm good at roasting. I can do that.
Nice. Hey, again, it's a good skill. It's a good skill.
But this is the thing. Instead of doing that, I kept him in enough to where he would be maintained, but yet he would still shut up and not, almost like on a leash.
Yeah.
And at the end of the show, he wound up buying a bunch of merch. So there you go. So
nice.
There's it's something that you can kind of play with, and but that's just years and years and years of working with the audience,
Yeah. And for me, when it comes to hecklers, I like I said, I don't try to do controversial stuff. Most of the time, if heckling is happening, it's drunk people who just won't stop talking is what it usually is. It's rarely, hey, I can't believe you said that. Let's get into it. I am sure that has happened. Because you're doing, in theory, rehearsed material, but at the same time, sometimes you're improvising, and sometimes you're just up there shooting the bull, and something will come out of your face that you never intended to come out of your face, and you're like, oh, I didn't realize, I did it. Yeah,
especially is so it's someone, in order for you to deal with it would have to be just a table of drunk idiots.
Yeah. Well, but like one night I was in Cleveland at the Hard Rock Roxino, and at the same time the show was happening, they were having the playoffs in Cleveland of the basketball team. And just from me saying that, you should realize I don't like sports at all. I don't like them at all. So I come out to the show, I come out on stage, and I say, see, I'm not the only one that doesn't like sports. Because they're at the show and they're not at the game or at home watching the game. And I lost them the moment I came out on stage and told them that I don't like sports. And, I need to, if I'm going to do it, don't do it right off the bat, and certainly don't do it in a town where there's a playoff happening. And if you are, like, maybe halfway through and have the best jokes written about the fact that you don't like sports. So, because
also the I believe it's the Football Hall of Fame is like close to Cleveland, isn't it?
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which I absolutely love, because while I could care less about any sport, music is like right there. It's like my number one, number two thing I just love, and my kids are like number 63, 64, somewhere around there. But, music is my thing. And so I loved going up there and doing shows there. But yeah, that night that they were done with me the moment I got up there, because they wrote me off. So, but yeah, dealing with hecklers is, it's tricky for me. I have a couple of techniques, especially if it's just people who are talking. I stop talking and I turn to somebody else who isn't talking. and I kind of whisper, and I'm like, "Do you hear voices?" Because I do, and I just want to make sure that I remembered to take my medication and it's working, that kind of thing. And usually the people pick up on the fact, and they're like, "Oh yeah," and that sort of thing. Or some lady was like, literally just could not get off her phone last weekend when I was up in Pittsburgh. It's addictive. And I have said to numerous people, I'm like, you could have just played, Tetris on your phone at home. If you could crush candy somewhere else, if that's what's going to happen. And
now, do you ever get videoed? Do you ever have people videoing you? Because I get it all the
I
time.
did a weekend down in Myrtle Beach a month or two ago, and the right before they bring me on, hey, just remember, you can't record, can't take pictures, and the woman is literally just sitting there. She thinks she's hiding it. She's like, got her phone at her chest. Her phone was in her crotch, and she's pointing it at me. And I try to be as nice as I can be. I was like, ma'am, I can't figure out if you're desperately trying to video me or if you're taking pictures of your crotch. I can't figure out which one. And so now she's embarrassed. And I'm like, they told you not to. I said, but more importantly, there's way better videos of me online doing this, where there's a solid audience and they're all laughing. And so,
it's so weird that people will go to live entertainment and still watch it through their screen.
Drives me. I mean, one of my favorite performers, non-comedian, is Rob Zombie. I'm a big. I like.
That's so interesting. That's so interesting.
I know. You couldn't. Nobody ever figures me for this metal guy. And especially people who knew me like in high school and junior high and stuff, because I really love rap music. So the ultimate is my favorite band is Rage Against the Machine. That's my ultimate favorite because that is in fact rap metal, and that is my all-time favorite. And so anyway, Rob Zombie in concert, I've seen him a couple of times in the last few years, and there's this part he's getting ready. He's either in the middle of a song or he's getting ready to play this song. And he has the band, they're up there doodling, and they're, John 5 is showing off his technique and stuff. And Rob literally runs around the audience, not like on the stage. Like he gets out, kind of does a circle. I think he's got some bodyguards with him, and he's just running a circle around. What are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? And he gets up on stage and he's like, a lot of people on their effing phones out there, a lot of people. He goes, how about we put them away and enjoy, this? He knows how long the song is. This is going to be 3 minutes and 43 seconds for Thunder Kiss 65. And how about we just put our phones away? And while he is saying that, there are people who are videoing him saying that and still end up keeping their phone up or their tablet up or whatever and recording the whole time. I'm like, that they're like, I never, the only thing that it's like something really fascinating has happened. I mean, I've seen Metallica and I'll be like, that was really sweet when that happened on stage, but getting the whole song, they got so many great live albums. Why would I think I'm going to get such a great video of it? And, when I do get to see Rage Against the Machine next year, I might get a video of, if possible, like it's the most amazing show you've ever been to, because they've literally registered on the Richter scale before, because when the band plays, the audience is jumping in unison. It's amazing. And so, I mean, that's the kind of thing you're like, that is so awesome.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I don't understand. And I really don't get it at a comedy show. Some people are trying to live stream it. Like why, what's going on here? And, maybe a picture, hey, we saw this guy from, we saw, a lot of people think I look like Larry Joe Campbell, and Larry Joe Campbell is an actor who played Andy on According to Jim. And I have a lot of people. Oh my
God.
Yeah. And his name was Andy on the show, and he is he's a portly fella. He's got blonde hair or red hair and blonde eyebrows. And I literally have a picture in my phone that I show people of me and him side by side, like that I've made, so that they can see that I am not him, but they'll think I am. But they'll take my picture and they'll be like, "Oh man, like we still love watching reruns of According to Jim." And I'm like, me too. Why are you telling me this? That's weird. And but I know at this point I know. So, and I'm sure nobody has ever walked up to Larry Joe Campbell, go, "Dude, you look like Andy Forrester or Big A or whatever." Like they never say that. So,
Now Not yet.
Not yet. So, but yeah, that the phones drive me nuts. And I work with Jimmy Walker a lot from Good Times, and I mean, he has said, he's like, it's the demise. He'll say it in his act. He's like, this is ruining the world. Like these phones, and I agree, and I'm on mine, just like everybody else. We're all on it, but it is. It's. I mean, I got 2 daughters, and it has been detrimental, especially to my 13-year-old daughter. I mean, I had to remove the TikTok app the other day because she was posting unbelievably inappropriate stuff for a 13-year-old, and we had already warned her. And I was like, all right. So I mean, it's insane, but that's not to do with comedy. I get it, but it's like, there's shows I've been to where they make you put them in those pouches. They make you put your phone in the pouch, and I forget what it's called, but it's company. You put your phone in a pouch, and then you can't get your phone out of the pouch unless you leave, so you can't be playing with your phone.
I've heard of like people like Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock and doing that. Now, granted, they're able to do whatever they want to do because they're Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle. I would be worried that people would be like, all right, screw it. I'm not seeing Magic Boy,
Right. Yeah. I mean, I have that thought too. And I went to a show. I was doing a thing. I was filming a thing at Zany's in Nashville, and I got in the night before, and I went and saw Fortune Feimster, who I've worked before, and oddly enough, I look a lot like her. And so we both have curly red hair, no butt. We both have a gut. I have literally done like a mirror image picture with her before because we look a lot, and we both grew up in North Carolina near one another. So, they were doing that phone thing. And I screwed up somehow with my pouch, and I would say mine didn't really stay locked in the thing. So I can't remember what I did wrong, but I did it wrong. So, the thing is, I have said to people in shows, I'm like, there was this young couple playing on their phone one time, and I did the thing. I'm like, because I try to be real discreet. I'm like, oh man, if y'all just wanted to play, if y'all wanted to look at Facebook, you could have stayed home and done that. And so they put it away. But like 2 minutes later, they couldn't stop. And it's like, they're like, look what so-and-so said on Facebook. And I finally was like, look, do you have kids? And I knew they didn't. They were too young to have kids. And they were like, no. I said, then you don't need to ever be on the phone during a show. I'm like, I have kids. I'm not on the phone. The only reason to be on a phone is to like check in to see if your kids are getting murdered by the babysitter. That's the only reason. And then other than that, there's nothing else.
The weirdest thing happened to me a couple weekends ago. Actually, I brought a guy up on stage, and he had his new iPhone with him, and he was recording the whole thing while he was on stage. So, I mean, of course, I had some fun with it, but it's just crazy to me. I'm like, man, this is the experience right now in this whole room.
Yeah.
Still looking through it.
Yeah. It's so weird. Like but it, have you seen, I forget what the name of that movie is called, but there's a documentary on Netflix about unplugging your phone and getting off of it.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called.
But it's really good.
Definitely. It is. It's really good. And it does make you, and I mean, it talks all about how they make it that way. They make it where you don't want to put it down. They make it where you, the longer you're on it, the better it is, and sometimes it dawns on me. I'm like, this is why they do this, like this is why you'll look at something and then the window will jump while you're looking at it because they're hoping you're gonna click when it jumps, and then you'll end up going to their advertiser. That's what they're doing on purpose.
I've actually done that sometimes, and it's the most frustrating thing.
Yeah, all the time. When you're playing games, they're advertising games, and they're like, you can play the game during the ad while you're waiting to play your game. I'm like, this is how they get you to buy the game outright because you get so sick of this.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, speaking of screens, the screen behind me says the Abracadamn podcast. And for my Abracadammits that may not know this,
it looks very familiar.
Mr. Andy Forrester is the one that designed the Abracadamn logo. So big shout out to you on that, because you did mention that you are an artist.
I am an artist. I have no, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say the thing about it is when I say artist, it is insane how, the attention to detail that you do with, I've seen
Can people-
Andy draw things that it looked like it was a photo. I thought it was a photograph, but no.
So
he
can
drew
people
it.
see, some people see this podcast, or is it just
You know what? And I've decided I'm going to do this, Andy, because normally this is an audio only, but
Right.
if you don't mind, man, because I was getting ready to put the Abracadamn YouTube channel. This could be our very first episode.
Well, you're good. You're good. I'll just show a few. So I have I've been drawing my whole life. I always wanted to draw comic books. I went to the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. They have a great art program there. When I signed up for my first class, they were like, "Well, what do you want to do when you leave college?" I was like, "I want to draw comics." And they were like, "Well, we don't do that here." I'm like, "Well, you've already accepted me. You got my money, and you give out art degrees. So let's just move on." And I always liked colored pencils. Always seemed to be my medium of choice. I feel like I have a really good grasp of using them, way better than paints. But there's people who can paint stuff, and they put me to shame. There's people who can use colored pencils that put me to shame. So I am not the greatest by any means, but I'm not bad for a guy with an art degree, as they say. And my degree is in graphic design. So I that is the one thing I will say. I am a pretty good graphic designer. Like I make a lot of logos. I made the Yellow Pages for years, and but I if I make comedy flyers all the time. I make them for myself, but I make them for other people too. And but I make stuff for. I mean, I've done company logos for law firms and things like that. So but a couple of years ago, a buddy of mine, I saw the first Deadpool movie. And I just felt like drawing Deadpool. And so I drew it, put it up. And my buddy had been putting little sketches he was drawing during meetings. And he was like, "We should have a sketch off." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know if I got time for that, man." And he was like, No, seriously, it'll be fun. We'll just do like a sketch off, like you and me one a day. And I was like, "I don't know if you really want to do that, dude." I said, he's like, "Well, I got it." He was a comedian. He's not anymore. And he also has an art degree. And I was like, "Well, all right. I'm just saying, I'm not bad at this." He's like, "Oh, it'll be fine." So like 3 days into it, he's like, "I never should have done this." Like, well, the first day we did it, I drew the Hobgoblin, which is what my license plate says. It's a Spider-Man villain. And then he was like, "Well, let's draw the same thing." And we were like, "Oh, let's both draw the Joker." And I drew like Cesar Romero from the old Batman show and that kind of. So it snowballed from there. And I did a bunch of stuff, but that's all stuff that already exists. So then we kind of petered out about halfway through the year. And the next year I started. Are you safe there?
Yeah, I am. Did you hear that, by the way?
I did. What was that?
That was a bird that flew into the window. So,
Holy crap.
yeah.
Holy crap. Wow. Wow.
All right. Sorry about that.
No,
bird hecklers.
Yeah,
There we
bird
go.
hecklers.
Shut
You
'em down.
clean your windows too good. But anyway, the next year I started doing animals. I just was like, I'm going to start drawing animals. And that really seemed to go very well. And so here's a couple I've done. Sorry, I got to always figure out. And I'll do the light so it's not so shiny or something.
That's good, man.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to figure this out.
Oh, I think that looks great right there.
Yeah. So there's that's all color pencil. I did this on black paper. I don't usually do black paper.
That's colored pencil.
Color pencil. Now, yeah, when I get to the frog, you'll see. I end up using a little bit of something extra. Now, this is Tom Morello. That's the world's greatest guitar player from Rage Against the Machine. He has seen this. Man. He has seen this and reposted it on Instagram. And when I got to meet him in 2019, I pulled it up on my phone and I was like, "I drew this." He goes, "Yeah, I've seen that before," which that just made my day. That's the best ever.
Dude.
So this is the frog. When you see it online, I gave it a black background. I keep meaning to go in there and color it black background, but like when you color pencil to get white in there, you have to leave it a B, and there was the white in here is like right up there near the nose or something. And I had to figure out, so I had to go get a gel pen and do that sort of thing. So I like graphite too. So I'll do black and white with a graphite pencil. Always liked Kiss. So I was, just trying to see if I can make stuff look real like it is. And
that is crazy.
So, and those are just some. I got a bunch. I've done. Let's see. What we got here? Yeah, I've done some stuff for people like drawing their pets, that kind of thing. And over the last few years, and I mean, it's good because it's made it where I've made some money doing it, and I didn't, I always wanted to do that. And now my issue is I really want to make prints of some of my work so I can sell those, because people ask me all the time, "How can I get some of your artwork?" And I'm like, even when I had to figure out how to charge people to do it. So I'm not, when you're a creative person, and I don't know about yourself, but as a creative person, I always find the hardest part is charging people for my creativity. And I know that sounds dumb because there are people in this world that are masters at charging and making money. And if I could do all the things that I do for free and still live comfortably, I would, because I like doing them. But that's just how my brain works. And that's one of the things that makes me different. I just don't have that mentality of like, I must be a millionaire. I just don't have that mentality.
And I think it's natural for creative people to, because a lot of times when you think of yourself, you do not think of yourself as being that good at the way other people will praise your
right,
stuff.
Right. Absolutely.
And you're like, yeah. I don't want to, so you don't want to feel like you're full of yourself by asking for a price. But, I love art. Me and my wife, Antoinette, anytime I'm doing a show out of town, if we're in some town, we always try to see if there's like an art gallery.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I go in there and I see the price tag on the art, and I'm not like, wow, that's overpriced. I'm like, no, I wish I could afford that because I know why that price tag is on there.
Yeah. The time, and that's the thing. Last year, I got a book last year, and it's from this lady who worked for NASA. She's British, but she worked for NASA. She quit her job at NASA to become a full-time artist. And she does pet portraits with colored pencil, really good at it. And I bought her book because in the book, there's a chapter and specifically a page that explains how you can charge people. And you can do it, like, hey, if I draw something, here's my flat fee if I draw it this size, or an hourly rate. But to me, an hourly rate, that's what I do when I do graphic design. But when I'm drawing, I can't tell you how long that's going to take me. And so it's per square inch, plus materials times 2, whatever it is. And there's a couple more things to the equation, but you're like, yeah, this is a great way to do it. Like, find out the square footage of your drawing, add, I charge X amount per square foot, $2 a square foot, or square inch. And I don't know why I said square feet. I'm really sorry. Square inch of the thing. And it's a much better way to go about it. And then that way I have set prices and I don't have to sit there and guess, well, this, because honestly, a lot of the people that ask me end up being my friends. And I always feel bad that I'm like charging my friends.
There's something so awkward about that whenever,
yeah,
especially like I always feel a little like if it's, somebody I've known for a long time, or maybe an old coworker or something, or like, hey, can you come do a show? I don't want to, I don't necessarily give them the normal price, but at the same time, I got to pay my bills.
Yes. So that's it. And so, and I'll tell you one thing. Do you end up watching online like other magicians doing magic just because you like it so much type thing, or do you try to avoid that because it's like watching other comics?
It's the same thing with other comics. I don't watch, and a lot of times, there's very few, but I mean, there's very few, it's just, that's what it boils down to is I don't want anything to pollute my creativity or my ideas also.
Oh yeah. And I, comedy wise, that's how I work. I there's certain people, when I started doing stand-up, this lady I worked with came and saw me. She was like, you remind me a lot of Jim Gaffigan. And at the time, he wasn't remotely as famous as he is now. He was just starting. He was in getting famous. He'd been doing comedy for a while, but he was doing Sierra Mist commercials. And when she told me that, I was like, I don't know what you mean. I looked him up. I was like, oh, yeah. And then I started listening to his albums. And that's when I had to start like, I can't tell that joke anymore. I can't tell that joke anymore. I can't tell that joke anymore. And it wasn't ever me taking his jokes. He and I think a lot alike.
Yeah.
We just do. And so I always listen to his stuff, A, because he is hilarious. And B, I got to make sure that I'm not out there doing material that other people are doing. I mean, sometimes it would be similar, but there were a couple that were like dead on. I was like, oh, geez, what are the chances of that? But again, it
happens.
I'm not copying him. He's certainly not copying me. It is that parallel thinking, and it happens. But what I do enjoy doing in the art side of things is I watch artists all the time online, out on Instagram and YouTube. I watch people design. I get tips. I mean, I'm a graphic designer, and I have probably watched, just in the last month, like 200 videos on how to do things that I either already know how to do or I don't know how to do it all. And I just want to finally learn how to do that type thing, or I want to know how to do it better.
Now, in Magic, I will say this: when it comes to sleight of hand and moves like that,
right?
That's different. I've got several books, videos, and stuff over the years that I've had. And if there's a certain move that I'm like, well, I'd like to learn this move. Let me go study this guy. That's totally different. Now, as far as on the performance aspect, though, yeah, it's the same thing with stand up. You kind of
that is really sort of pollution is a good way of put it. You don't want to pollute your mind because you don't want to slip up and somehow put it in there unknowingly. And
exactly.
I've been accused of that before too, of like, hey, that's that Brian Regan joke. And I was like, I'm an enormous fan. Why would I ever, I don't steal jokes. That's so dumb that if you're not good enough to write them, then you can't do it. And that's all there is to it. But B, if I'm going to steal from somebody, it's not going to be somebody that I love and admire. That's not going to be the case. I'm not that dumb.
What another thing and I've had to stop doing this, and there is there's one comedy magician, and most people don't know who he is in the United States, which is very unfortunate because he is the best. He's the best working right now, but he's out of Denmark, and his name is Rune Klan. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now Rune is so brilliant. When I do see Rune perform, I get jealous. And that's how much I love his stuff. I get jealous of it. And so I've had to almost stop watching because I'm like, I look at Rune and I'm like, I suck.
So that happens to me with both comedy and art. I mean, art is, and I am very I have an art degree, a lot of art history, studied a lot of that stuff. But I know what I like, and I like things that look like things that look like what it's supposed to be. Or if it's going to be abstract, it needs to be just unbelievably awesome that I'm like, I can handle that. That's excellent. But, I will tell you, I'm not the biggest Jackson Pollock fan because, as they have said for years, a 2-year-old could do that. And I'm not saying that. I'm just saying his work doesn't excite me in the way. And also, I think one of the greatest artists ever is like Todd McFarlane. And there's other people that don't know who that is, but he's the guy that created Spawn, started his own comic book company, drew Spider-Man, and took it to a whole new level, and everybody copied his style. And he's a tremendous artist, and I absolutely love his artwork. And some people hate him, but so that's the kind of thing art. So, and that's how it is. And I'm like that with comedy too, but I watch people online, and it'll hurt you sometimes. You'll sit there and go, I should stop watching some of this because they are so good that it makes me go, why do I bother? Yeah. Which is funny because I've had two people say this to me. Other people have said it before, but one guy was being rude. The other one was just last weekend or whatever, and she was being silly. But I showed her my artwork, and she's like, why are you wasting your time with comedy? The other guy, she was being silly. Other guy said, why would you waste your time being a mediocre comedian when you can draw like this? He wasn't. And then he tried to backpedal. I'm like, dude, I heard that. So
first of all, you're not a mediocre comic.
Well, I appreciate that. You're
definitely not a mediocre artist. It's crazy insane. And hopefully, afterwards, after this episode, people will definitely go out and check out some of your art as well as your comedy. Because please do. And that's the thing is I like my artwork, and I think it's one of the reasons why most of it resides in my house. Because sometimes, like that Tom Morello, the only way it's ever going to leave my house if it's going to go to his house. That's the only way that's going to leave my house. Well, okay, let's do this because, once again, it is interesting how, not a lot of comics, you don't know that other side of them, that other thing that they do that they happen to be really good at.
No, you're right. That is the case. A lot of people, most comics. I've done career day at my kid's school, and I go in as mainly a comedian, but I also tell them I'm an artist. And I explain, I'm like, look, almost no comedian starts out where this is their only job. You have to have another job. You don't make money doing this.
No.
I said, and honestly, you really don't make a lot of money doing this until you become very famous. And that's when you start making enough money where you're like, well, this is my main job. So, but I've done career day and I tell them like, I do this and I do that. So yeah, you're right. You don't see it, but I mean, I talk to guys all the time. I love, there's a comedian I know. Do you know Michael Mack?
Michael Mack.
So he plays guitar, does parody songs. He has one of the most entertaining last 10 minutes of his set. All the lights go out and he does this musical thing where he plays like a set of songs and he does puppets and things like that and changes hairstyles. It's very fun, very entertaining.
Nice. Michael Mack. Okay.
Michael Mack. Very, very funny guy. I love him. And I remember one time I was talking to him and he was like, yeah, I renovate houses and do construction. That's how I supplement my income when I'm not working. But he's a headliner, does clubs all over. But, again, you had not heard of him. So he's not a household name like Kevin Hart or something. So he's good, and I met a guy in Myrtle Beach a couple months ago, and he's a plumber, but I've met him before. He's a comedian and he's absolutely hilarious. And I was like, oh, I'm just letting you know, I may be calling you in the future, even though you live in Florida, because, I told him about like trying to fix the tub in my house. And I ended up getting water on the kitchen ceiling below. And he told me, well, if you had done this, you could have avoided that. And so I'm like, oh, I got to remember this sort of thing. Call Nathan Wallace in Florida the next time, because he's like, oh, I like helping people. So he, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think it's a thing you don't already know. And there's lots of other comedians that are like me, where it's like, I am chock full of creativity. I won't brag about myself at all, but I'm not, I'm not a genius by any means, but I am chock full of creativity. I think I'm fairly funny. But I'll never tell you I'm the greatest ever or anything like that. That's not how my brain works. So,
well, also that's douchey. I don't think any of us will say we're the greatest.
Well, I'm the guy that said the ugly thing to me about why would you waste your time being a mediocre comedian. One of the first things he said to me was, I've never bombed. He was headlining, I've never bombed.
That guy.
And the moment somebody tells you that, just wait for it. All you gotta do is, and I worked with him for 2 weeks in the Bahamas, and it was a horrendous gig. Yeah.
There's nothing worse when working with a douchey headliner too. Whenever, I'm not going to drop his name, but I'll never forget a weekend that I had to work like that too with a guy.
Yeah,
and it was the worst.
Yeah, but you know what though? I would say 98% of everybody you meet in the world of comedy are some of the greatest people you will ever meet.
Absolutely.
And so there's just a handful who got into it for the wrong reason. They got into it for ladies or
those
drugs or money or whatever their reasoning is. It's not a good reason. It's not authentic. And so I could tell that that's his thing. I applaud people if they figure out a way to get into comedy and they find that that's a way to meet ladies on a regular basis. My wife asked me out. I don't possess the ability to ask ladies out. And so that's never been I mean, I genuinely love making people laugh in some way, shape, or form. If I can do it, if I can draw something funny, I'll do it. If I can say something funny, I look funny. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I got a haircut recently, but normally I have like this perm going on and it's, sticking out and I got a couple of chins. And so it's just a look that I have. I got these white eyebrows. I mean, it's dumb.
Well, you also know this because you are bagging on yourself quite a bit, but you do know, isn't it? Like, if you're funny, you're already like 75% more attractive. So there you go.
There is that. I mean, it has to be that way for my wife to have. We were study partners in college. We took a summer class. We met in 1994. So however many years ago that was, 27 years tomorrow. Tomorrow's our anniversary. And I asked her, we got married 3 years after we met, and I married her on the same day that I met her. which that sounds weird, but three years later. So we met in a class, and the teacher assigned everybody study partners, and she was my study partner. Gorgeous lady. I was like, well, this is going to be awkward, because honestly, when I'm around like really, really pretty ladies, I feel like I can't look at them, because I'm just like, I'm almost, I feel like I'm like the Hunchback of Notre Dame, like, don't look at me, I'm hideous. So, but she somehow liked me enough, and it has to have been my sense of humor. We got in trouble for class because it was like a communications class, and it was talking about like making sure you use the right diction and making sure you make the right. So we were having at one point do things in front of a mirror, and boy, you put me in front of a mirror, and I will literally just see what kind of faces I can make. I grew up having a bathroom where if you sat on the toilet, you could look at yourself in the mirror, and I would just sit there and make faces all the time because I'm an idiot. And that's what I do. So yeah, she got in trouble for laughing, in class, because I was, so.
Well, I tell you what, let's do this, Andy.
I'm sure I've gone too long. I'm sorry.
No, you're all right, man. You're great. This is the Abracadamn podcast, and on the Abracadamn podcast, we always have to do some magic. Okay?
Oh, sweet. Yes.
So here we're gonna do some magic. All right. First of all, hey, I do want to prove, these are my real hands. Okay, except for that one.
Nice.
These are my real hands. There we go. I'm prop scum. I'm
nice.
Prop
No. I got the same one. You ready? Here we go.
There we go. All right. We're going to try to do some mind read.
All right.
Let's see.
87.
Already. Right up. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. I tell you what, I'm going to show you some cards here.
All right.
Let's see if we can.
There we go.
There we go.
All right.
Think of one of those cards. Just think of one. Do you have it?
I got it.
All right, cool. Here we go. Give me a second.
All right.
Now I'm going to lose the cards in the deck.
That's what I tend to do.
Shuffle. Here we go. All right. Now, what I'm going to do, Andy, is I'm going to try to get the cards up on the screen here.
You may have to turn off your background.
Here we go. We may have to turn. There we go.
There we go.
There we go. Maybe I'll still may have to turn it off. Now I'm going to try to cut to your card. I'm going to try to cut to your card. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. We're trying. You can lie to me, and I won't know.
Right here's where I'm obligated. I'm obligated right here.
All right.
What was the card you're thinking of?
8 of diamonds.
8 of diamonds. Look, I'm obligated. I cut to one card.
Yep. And you know the secret about the 8 of diamonds, right? Right? The 8 of diamonds.
That?
There's an 8 in the middle of the card.
There is. I knew that.
Yes.
Literally, there's nothing I don't know about it.
I figured. I found that out. I found that out a couple of years ago, and I find it fast. I love stuff like that. I love illusions. I do love magic. I know that you probably are like, well, I just had a guy. I genuinely like. I like magic. I'm torn about knowing the secret and not knowing the secret, because as a lay person, I like being fooled with magic, but as someone who's a critical thinker, because to be honest, that's kind of how my brain works when it comes to like writing jokes and stuff. Like I want to almost know how things work. And so a lot of times when I'm watching magic, I'm literally going, all right, in order to do this, he did that. But then they do something that I'm like, never mind. I have no idea,
Well, a good magic trick. Also, I'm never one of these kind of people that I'm not like hung up, obsessed on secrets. Really, I'm not.
Yeah.
But and some people hate magic. I had a guy one time. I showed a guy a card trick. I showed a guy a card trick, and he tried to fight me.
Is it now? There's people that are Christian, believe it's evil and that kind of thing.
No, actually, I probably should have let him flush first, but he was. That was such a comic thing of me to do.
Nice. Well, that was the trick. How did you get in the stall? That's the trick.
But no, really though, sometimes you will. It's so funny what you do pick up by doing magic for people, because there's some people that just accept it and go with the flow and
yeah.
Moment. Then you got some people that, like engineers are always the best, because they'll come up afterwards and they're like, I think I know how you did that. And they have this crazy thing.
Yeah.
That would work. By the way,
right.
It would work.
Oh yeah.
It's like, no. I'm not that smart, buddy. That's not how it works.
Yeah, I love it. I really do. I wish that, the trick that I particularly like doing to kids, because I love kids, which is bad because I've seen me. And so sometimes I'm around little kids and I do voices. And so I'll be like, hey, how are you doing? And my kids who are older now are like, Dad, you're scaring them. Get away. But I love if you can get like I have a niece and a nephew that are much younger than mine. Mine are 19 and 13, but my niece and nephew are toddlers and a little older. And I'll do the thumb thing. I love doing the thumb thing where you pull your thumb off. And I one time, and if you know anything about little kids, their key phrase is do it again.
Oh yeah.
Do it again. Always. Do it again. Do it again. And if I just saw them recently, and it was like around Mother's Day, and I was playing with them. And I was like, they had books, or they said, tell us a story. I said, all right. And so I start telling them the story of the origins of Spider-Man, because it's well known that I'm a big Spider-Man fan with the family and stuff. So and then they were like, keep going. I was like, I already told you how he came to be. And they were like, well, tell us another one. So then I'm like telling the origins of villains and stuff. And then in my own head, because I don't buy comic books anymore, but I love them, I'm like confusing the movies with the comic books, going, well, I hope I'm just telling something that's remotely close to what's real. So, which again, it's a comic book. It's not real, but I get it.
Well, here, let's do this. Okay. Because also on the Abracadamn podcast,
yeah,
every entertainer that comes on,
I should have peed before I got on here.
Well, I always want to hear a good hell gig story.
Let's hear one, Andy. Well, I've definitely had the gigs where you show up and almost nobody's there. And those are hell gigs to me, but everybody has those. And you definitely don't like that when you're the main person, the headliner, the closer of the show. You hate it when there's like, you go, well, clearly I'm not a draw, and I'm not remotely famous, so I get it. But, a smidgen bit more these days, just the ever tiniest bit, because people have seen my dry bar. But really for me, the hell gigs, I did one where a guy booked us at a country club, and I do those gigs. I love them. I know they have magicians and hypnotists and all the time at the country club, so I love it. And I did one, and they have like, most of them are in like where they have the giant ballroom dining room of the clubhouse type thing. But this one was in a building that had a restaurant in it, almost like it's like a little bar restaurant, but it's still part of the golf course. So we show up, me and the other guy, and I went on first, he went on second, and unbeknownst to us, there is a family reunion that is taking place at this facility. And they are all African American, and we are not. And while that doesn't seem like that would be a bad thing per se, it was. They didn't like us at all. I went up first and proceeded to eat it, and I tried over and over, and like I was like, I know y'all are looking at us like we didn't think you would be here, and we are thinking the same thing. We didn't think you would be here either, and it was not planned. Nobody told anybody else. And when I went into the next guy goes up, and he happens to play a I'm gonna say the wrong name, not a ukulele, not a fiddle, a mandolin. He plays the mandolin. Not the whole act, but towards the end. And literally, this old lady just says out loud during his set, "Oh, he's no better than the first one." And she gets up to leave, but she's old and somebody's escorting her. I think it takes her like 3 minutes to get out of that place. And we all just sort of sit and watch. It's very so that was one, but that's kind of like not our fault. But the one that I have a couple that sort of haunt me. I had one recently where I a woman thought I called her fat. I did not. Yeah. And it was front row. I had seen her during the first, the feature act set. And he had talked about, he's a black guy. And he said, hey, somebody asked me, can black people get cold? And right when he said that, the woman put her start trying to put her jacket on. Well, honestly, it looked like she had accidentally picked up her kid's jacket. She was not a big lady, but she looked like that jacket wouldn't fit her anyway. So when I got up there, I just said, I loved how when he said he was, blind people ever get cold and you're there trying to put your jacket on, but it's, too small or something. And I think I just said it real nonchalantly. And she was like, well, maybe your clothes don't fit either. And, the ironic thing is I have lost like 30 pounds since January, but I'm still fat, so it doesn't matter. And I instantly was like, yes, of course they don't fit. Look at me. I'm a hideous man. And 2 minutes later, she stands up, flips me off, and her husband leave. I was like, really? I didn't mean anything, And so that haunts me. I mean, yeah, I know you don't want to hear a ton of them, but yeah, that one's recent. that one hurts. That one still hurts. And honestly, if I could find her and find a way to apologize to her, because that's not how I like doing comedy. And it's set for a terrible mood for me personally for the rest of the show. So much so that the audience knew, and I had a random audience member call me later that night and tell me that she's like, you were hilarious. Please don't get offended, or please don't be upset by that lady. She has some personal stuff that she clearly was going through, and because she apparently said to like the manager, I've been trying to lose weight or something like that. And I'm like, I was never commenting on her weight, honestly. And a lady I did know sent me a message, goes, we all were talking about it. It looked like she picked up her 3-year-old's jacket and brought it to the show by accident. And that's what it did. And I wasn't even trying to, the point was more, hey, it's like it was subliminal. Hey, he said, so anyway, if she's listening by chance, I love you, ma'am, and I did not mean it. It was not intentional.
There we go. And throw that out in the universe, man.
Yes.
And those things happen. Those things are going to happen. And
they do. They do. And it hurts. It hurts my brain because, there's a great cartoon or similar cartoons that go around of a comedian standing on stage, and it's a picture of the audience and they're all laughing, but there's one dude with an angry face, arms folded. And it's like what the audience sees, and it's, what the comic sees, and the comic only sees the one angry person. And I have learned over the years, you have to say into your head, that person may have had the worst day ever and already bought the ticket. They could have been dragged here and they hate comedy. You don't know.
That's true. Well, I'll tell you what, Andy Forrester, let's do this. Let's move along.
Sorry.
And you're all right, man.
I'm a talker.
This is
I apologize.
therapy. This is Abracadamn therapy.
I know.
Too.
Yeah.
So let's do this, man. Let's get a thought-provoking question before we get out of here.
Let's do it.
If there was a conspiracy theory about stand-up comedian / artist Andy Forrester, what would it be?
A conspiracy theory, huh? That is a thought-provoking question. If there was a conspiracy theory about me, I think the conspiracy would be that secretly, like a lot of people have said to me, when they meet me, oh, I've heard you're such a nice guy. This conspiracy theory would be that I'm really a serial killer and I'm hateful and that kind of thing. And, I get angry like everybody else. I'm a redhead. We have a reputation. So I do get angry. And honestly, I think the reason I perform my comedy in the way that I do is because that's exactly how I want to be. I want to be goofy and fun all the time. People will say to my wife, if they meet her, she rarely goes to shows, but if they meet her or something, it's like, oh, he just must be a treat to live with. And she will reply back with, he's not like this at home. And I will look at them and be like, that's right, because they're not a good audience. They're terrible at home and they treat me like crap. So, I have made mistakes just like everybody else. I have said things to people I shouldn't have said. And so some people may be like, he is hateful, but overall, I am absolutely, I am the Eagle Scout that I am. I genuinely, I try to like people. Now, if you'd ride with me in a car, you will be like, he is hateful, because I find all the other drivers on the road, not all of them, but most of them, to be terrible people. I got neighbors that I can't stand because they can't seem to behave like a reasonable human being. If you don't put your shopping cart up at the grocery store, I think you should get the death penalty. So that kind of thing. so but I think we all have our own opinions. I'm not a sweet old lady, but I and I like anybody that ever goes like, I think I'm a nice guy, usually like, oh, they're not a nice guy. But I never once wake up in the morning and go, who am I going to be a jerk to? You know what I mean? Like, I think everybody should do that. But you meet people who are all like, they must live a miserable life,
Oh, yeah.
So that would be the conspiracy, is that secretly, I am a horrible person. I do listen to like heavy metal, and I don't subscribe to like it makes you a bad person type thing. And so I think that's one of the things that people are like, hey, wait a minute, you do seem to know, like, how do you know the lyrics to Slipknot songs? I'm like, what do you mean? How do I know the lyrics to Slipknot? Like, come on, man.
Well, okay, so the conspiracy is that he's John Wayne Gacy reborn.
Yeah.
Let's hope not.
Yeah. I hope not too. I really do. Yeah. Because if it is true, I'm gonna have to kill you. So I mean,
There we go, brother. Well, man, I tell you what, Andy, this has been a blast, dude. This has been
absolutely
awesome. I tell you what, do you go ahead and let the listeners know where they can find Andy Forrester comedy and some of your artwork?
Absolutely. So just about everywhere. My is Comic Big A. My name is Andy. I'm a big guy. My nickname's been Big A since I was a teenager. So Comic Big A. That is my handle on Facebook. I am at Comic Big A on Instagram. That's my handle on Twitter. My website is www.comicbiga.com. If you want to see my artwork, it is on Instagram. I have a whole folder of it on Facebook. You can go to my photos. There's a folder, and you can drawing and sketches. You can see it there. But also, I have an extra Instagram account, Andy Forrester Art, and I think there are underscores. So it's Andy_Forrester_art, and that's ANDY, and Forrester is 2 R's in the middle, one at the end, FORRESTER. So not Foster, as they often call it a restaurant. So yeah, that's where you can see it. And I post, I'll post my artwork on my regular Instagram account as well. So, but my comedy, you can check me out on YouTube. I've got a YouTube channel. I think it's also Comic Big A, but I can't say for sure. But if you Google Andy Forrester, I am the first one that comes up, which I can't believe either. And you will find, and Dry Bar Comedy, you'll find me on there too. So just lots of places.
Well, that sounds great, Andy. And you know what, man? This was a blast. Thank you so much
for
coming on the Abracadamn podcast.
Thank you for having me. I had a blast.
All right, Abracadammits, that does it for that episode of the Abracadamn podcast. Guys, if you have not done so, be sure to check out Andy Forrester. You definitely want to see his Dry Bar comedy special. It is hilarious. I promise you, you will laugh. And also, check out some of his artwork, too. It's absolutely incredible. If you need anything drawn, Andy would be your man. I'm telling you. Also, if you guys have not done so yet, be sure to subscribe, follow the Abracadamn podcast wherever it is you listen to podcasts. I don't care where it is. If you stand in a cave and listen for echoes, you should be able to hear this podcast. So be sure to like, subscribe, and also on the YouTube channel, subscribe and hit that little bell button. That would be nice. Like always, Abracadammits, thank you for listening.
Yeah, awesome.
Danny, will you please stop drinking vodka at my kid's birthday party?
And then you got a freaking miracle. There you go.